everyone, it's Kelly here, and today I'm going to show how I made these embossed buttons on this card. I'm going to first start out with the Hero Arts and Basic Gray Zigzag and More background. There's just a bunch of different great patterns on this one stamp, and I'm going to use 3 different patterns for my buttons. I'm just taking some splash chalk ink here and inking up 2 of the patterns, and I'm going to stamp them on a couple different shades of our pool layering papers. And then next I'm going to take some grass chalk ink and ink up 1 more pattern and use some grass layering paper. And once I have all my patterns stamped, I'm going to take 2 different sizes of circle punches. I have a 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch here, and I'm going to punch 3 circles from each different pattern or color of cardstock. And next I'm just going to take some adhesive and adhere all 3 of my circles together, and that will form my button. And I found that using 3 pieces of cardstock is about right. It makes a nice sturdy button, and it will hold up to the embossing that I'm going to be doing later. And also, you really only need to have the pattern on the top circle. The bottom 2 won't be seen. And next come the buttonholes, and I like to first mark out with a pencil where my buttonholes are going to be so I can make sure they're evenly spaced. And I'm going to take my handy dandy tweezers here and hold it in place while I use a 1/16 inch hole punch to punch my buttonholes. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do this with my other 2 buttons, and then we'll be ready for the embossing. So now I'm going to add some shine to my buttons by adding a couple layers of embossing powder. So to do this, I'm just going to place my button face down in my Versamark ink pad, and then I'm going to dip it into my clear embossing powder. So I'm just going to heat this up, and then when it's all finished, I'm going to dip it right back in my clear embossing powder and emboss it again. And by doing this when it's still warm, the embossing powder will stick right to it. You don't need to add another layer of Versamark. And the tweezers work great here for a couple of reasons. One is they keep your fingers back from the heat of the embossing gun, and they also keep the buttonholes clear from the embossing powder clogging the holes closed. So I'm just finishing up my 3rd layer of embossing powder, and then I'm going to take it off my tweezers, and here you can see the nice layer of shine that adds to the buttons. And then I'll zoom in here a little bit and give you a close-up of all 3 buttons. And finally, I just want to show you quickly how I add thread to my buttons without adding too much bulk to the back side of the button. I just thread my button with my needle, and then I take a roll of, it's double-sided tape. One side is sticky to start with, and the other side has a release paper that you can take off later. So I'm just going to cut a little square, and then I'm going to place it on the back side of my buttons, holding those strings down, and then I'll just trim off the extra, and then the button is ready to use. You just have to take off the release paper, and there's very little bulk to the back of the button, and it will lay fairly smooth on your card. Here's a shot of the card I made using these buttons. Thanks so much for watching.